Right, hello again. Oh, actually put the microphone on my shirt. Bear with me. Sorry about that. So, still Tuesday the 15th, and on to our second of the evening, just to keep ourselves ahead of the game. So this particular one was very, very kindly donated by James Goggin. There he is. I'm going to check now, just in case, because I know Chris and Lindsay Cook did send me a load from Drinks by the Dram, but I am fairly certain that this one was from James Goggin of Maverick Drinks, who are something to do with Drinks by the Dram, but I can never remember exactly what it is. So just give me 2 seconds just to confirm that it was from him and not from them, because I don't want to make myself look silly, or any more silly than I normally do. Yes, this was from James Goggins. Thank you, James, for this, because this is another one that is quite difficult to get hold of, simply because, again, it's another Speyside that is known as an industrial malt, a factory malt almost, where it is churning out single malt for blended whiskies. And it's Glenallachie. Now, Glenallachie does actually mean something. It is from Gaelic, and I am going to put it up now. Well, presumably it's pronounced Allachie, but it's another one of these Gaelic words where it's like Alaikead. I have no idea. So Glenallachie, that means Glen of the Rocky Place, apparently. And this is where the distillery is. It's just down the road from Aberlour. And it was actually built in, it's a relatively recent distillery. It was built in 1968, finished in 1967, finished in 1968. It was built by a subsidiary of Scottish and Newcastle breweries, who were sort of looking to get into the whisky market. And it ticked along for a little bit until it was bought by the Invergordon Distillery Group in 1985, who at the same time bought Isle of Jura, and it was essentially surplus to requirements for them, so it closed down and was decommissioned in 1987. 1989, the distillery was then sold to Pernod Ricard, who opened it up. Ecard? Did I say Pernod Ecard? Ricard, who reopened the distillery, basically kind of gave it a bit of a refurb. I think they extended the stills as well, and they were looking for source malt whiskies for brands such as 100 Pipers or a blended whiskey called Glen Campbell, which is apparently very, very big in France. Never seen it in the UK. Absolutely no idea what it's like. Pernod Ricard bought part of Seagram's estate, which included Chivas Brothers. It's now part of the Chivas Regal kind of. This Pernod Ricard, Chivas Brothers is a subsidiary of Pernod Ricard that sort of look after a number of whiskey distilleries and brands. So it's now, Glenallachie is now in that bracket. So again, it's churning out single malt predominantly for Glen Campbell. It's probably in Chivas, 100 Pipers, a number of other blends, and very, very difficult to find as a single malt. Not as far as I'm aware, no official bottling of it, not like the Flora and Fauna range with Diageo, with the Glen Spade that we've just had. This particular one is from a company that are also associated with Maverick Drinks, called the Boutique Whiskey Company, and this is what the bottle looks like. It's the Glenallachie, it's batch 1, so presumably there's a couple of other batches either already out or on their way. And it doesn't have an age statement on it. Apparently there are 219 bottles of this, and it's sold at 50 cl bottles rather than 70 cl, and it's 51.7%. So I think that's cask strength. There's no chill filtration, there's no colouring added, and you'll be able to see when I actually pour it that there is definitely no colouring added. But I don't know how old it is. I don't even know if it is a combination of ages, because I can't read anything on the Boutique Whiskey website, on their label, that says anything of an age. So I have no idea. So if you know what the age is, please do let me know. Yeah, just thought I'd double check just to make sure it doesn't actually say, oh look, there is an age on it, but no, there's not. So I don't actually know how old it is. So 219 bottles, 219 50 cl bottles. Now whether that includes the ones that they've broken down into the 3 cl Drinks by the Drams, I've no idea, but you know, I'm very, very lucky to get hold of this, because Glenallachie is really hard to find as a single malt. Now, Master of Malt and the Whisky Exchange were selling this. They are out of stock. Not many bottles, so not much of a surprise. I did see it had just sold in, I think it was Whisky Auctioneer had just sold a bottle of it at 46 quid. So that's really where you're going to find this. And I don't even know how much it was when they were retailing it. I'm going to guess probably about 45, 50 quid maybe. So no colouring added, and you can probably, hopefully see that is pretty clear that no colouring has been added, because that is really, really pale. That's a really pale colour. I'm kind of afraid I'm going to drop the glass now, but that's super pale. That's not too far off clear. That really is. Now 57.1%. I do have some water ready, but obviously I'm going to try it without. Whoa, Jesus. Oh. Oh, what is that? It's a really unusual nose. It reminds me of Brazil nut shells. Not Brazil nuts, but the shells. It's slightly acrid. It's quite intense, but it's a weird kind of shells of nuts and not quite cleaning products. It's really weird, and strangely, considering how pale it is, it's got that odd sharpness of when colouring's been added. It's not quite the plasticky artificial feel, but it's got something akin to that. It's a really unusual nose. It's not really to my liking, to be honest. It's quite unusual and I'm not enjoying it. It's different and I'm trying to pick out what I can, but I'm not enjoying it while I'm nosing it. That's not to say it's a bad nose, it's just not really for me. Really unusual. There's some lemon zest in there as well, like lemon peel, rather than sort of citrusiness. This is real kind of lemon peel, and lemon peel not that's been kind of sliced off with a knife, so it's that slightly oily lemoniness rather than a zester where you get more of a sharpness to it. Yeah, there's an oiliness to this as well. This is weird. Right. See, on the nose was quite harsh in terms of the ABV, but on the palate, arguably, I'm probably gonna add some water to it, but there is very, very little burn. Very little to indicate this is 50 plus ABV. It's quite light. That nuttiness is still there. The oiliness is sort of there still as well. There's not a massive amount to it, weirdly. There's not even, and you know, there's not the burn of an alcohol to kind of compensate for the lack of anything else. The finish is really just died off. There's an unusual sweetness to it as well. It's when you're making caramel and it's when it's not gone dark but it's all melted down, so you've got that kind of sugar and water solution that's thickening but it's still clear, and it's that kind of sugariness that's sort of slightly cooked but not getting to the kind of brown burnt caramel feel to it. I wonder if water's going to bring anything out, because the alcohol that's there, I got a bit more of a kick to it, but it still wasn't anywhere near sort of 50%. It's 51.7. I'm not sure if I said it was 57.1, 51.7, but even so, it still doesn't really give that impression that it's that high. You know, it's kind of like a 43. And again, it's kind of like a sugary sweetness. There is a slight nuttiness to it, but it's quite subdued. There's not a massive, this is a really light whiskey. And it feels like it's lacking something. I just don't know what, because not having had a Glenallachie before, I don't know really what to expect. I don't even know how this would work in a blend. You know, clearly they're churning this out for blended whiskey, and there's not really anything that kind of to suggest it will give a blend some extra character that you could kind of pick out the Glenallachie element of, you know, 100 Pipers or a Glen Campbell or whatever. It really, it's interesting, but it's not that it's not fun, it's just a little bit featureless and a little bit kind of, yeah, There is something to it as well, and it reminds me of another spirit. And it's not, it's kind of like a white rum, and kind of like a very, very watered down kind of grappa, that sort of thing. It's got something else to it that is almost unwhiskyish. It's more like something else, another kind of white spirit, not vodka or gin, but like a white rum, the sweetness of a white rum, but not really sugary sweetness, but also something like grappa. There's a slight weird grapiness, grape skins, grape pips, something weird about this. And it is unusual, really unusual. And I kind of like it because of that, but at the same time, I'm not too sure about this. I'm not much of a fan, as you can probably tell, because I really don't know where I stand on this whiskey. I've not added any water. And I really do think if I'd have added water, it would have just knocked everything out. I don't think the alcohol percentage that was there was masking anything. It didn't feel like there was anything hidden underneath. What a very, very strange whiskey. Which is, I can see why somebody like the Boutique Whiskey Company have actually picked it in terms of, wow, this is different. This is really unusual. This is a distillery that is quite hard to find, and this particular whiskey is quite distinctive to pretty much everything else. It's light, but it's not necessarily easy drinking. It's got sharpness to it, but it's not unpleasant. It's just odd. It's an oddball whiskey. Yeah, I really don't know how I feel about that. I'm glad I don't score it, because I would not have a freaking clue what score to give that. Right, that's me done for the night. So I shall see you at the next one. Cheers.